All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nabila Abubakari. I'm the founder and director of the Go-To Initiative, a sustainability initiative that bridges the gap between practice and knowledge of sustainability. And I'm really excited to be on Just Women Africa.
Go-To Initiative has become a key player in Ghana's sustainability space. What gap did you see, and how is Go-To uniquely positioned to fill it?
Okay. So, top of off the bat, the gap that we saw was an enabling environment or the enabler for people to do good. Before now, me and my team had worked in community development and we had been in the sustainability space a couple of years before we started Go2. And the whole time we thought to ourselves, oh, there's a lot of information. There's so much information about how to live sustainably, how to transition to the circular economy. But are there enablers? Is it easy for people to do good? And we found that it wasn't easy for people to do good. It wasn't easy for brands to do good. It wasn't easy for communities to do good and live sustainably. And that's a gap that we started Go2 to fill.
Beyond advocacy, Go-To is driving tangible solutions. Can you share a real high-impact project that has showcased Go-To's approach to sustainability?
So Go2 is nearing 2 years since its establishment and engagement. If I'm asked about a high impact solution, I would say it's one that is in the making, and that would be our Eco Makala project. And it is in Ghana's largest open air market and seeks to pivot and scale reuse solutions to single use polythene bags or rubber bags in the Makala market. And the project began in September 2024 and on the ground under the Youth Climate Action Fund and with the support of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly ended in December 2024. The project won on a $2,000 budget. But what we were able to do was really interesting, which was truly understand the peculiarities and the nuances of shopper vendor dynamics and how they related to single-use plastics. What drove um, the need for the black rubber bag or the white rubber bag or the single-use plastic. What we found was interesting, simple but profound, that for the average Makala shopper, a rubber bag or a single-use plastic bag represented convenience, hygiene, respect, and privacy. It wasn't really the rubber bag that they loved. It was these things that they loved. And so together with an SME, and which is what Being Go-To seeks to do, scale with the SMEs, build solutions by feeding the data that we get from communities and our interactions with communities, feeding that into the SMEs processes and building. So we worked with an SME, Ghana Ocean Bags, to build an alternative. The first one did not fly, but the second one is flying. Now we're on the digital platforms with Eco Makola, attempting to drive community ownership with Eco Makola. That's bring people like an 18-year-old in the University of Ghana or a 34-year-old civil servant to be a part of the project and to co-own the project. Within 4 months, we're able to come up with a 10% benchmark. And our findings told us that if by the end of 2025, we're able to get record a 10% reuse rate in the Makala market, it will be an indicator that our strategies are actually working and that we should double down on the strategies to hit 80%, 90% reuse rates. At which point will be clear that this Eco Makala plan, this Eco Makala strategy can be replicated in other markets. And if you look in the sustainability space, if you look in the advocacy space, you'd find that spaces like Makala are left out of the advocacy, the strategy, the building. And yet this demographic represents a huge chunk of the Ghanaian population and the Ghanaian community. So you can imagine just the strides that Makala will be making in the next 5 years.
Corporate partnerships are crucial in sustainability. How does GoTo engage businesses?
So our magic wand in engaging businesses is really just meeting them where they are at. So at the beginning of the conversation, you asked the gap we saw, and we said the lack of an enabling environment for businesses to do good, for businesses to be sustainable. And I also mentioned how my team and I have been involved in community development activities, advocacy activities before now. And one thing that we noticed was in our line of work, our community tends to stress on ideals, which is good in itself. But stressing on ideals often removes the realities of the people that you're dealing with. And I think with businesses, business as usual in the advocacy space had done that. And so when we started engaging, then there was a lot of reluctance. There was a you versus me type of demeanor. But one thing that we made them understand is that, listen, we respect your bottom line. We respect the value that you've given to society and development and economy up until this point. We're not here to have you do any cost-heavy lifting that doesn't come back to your business, right? Because at the end of the day, we need the business to survive to even support community development that we do. And so how we engage them is we understand exactly, and we tend to deal with businesses on a case-to-case basis, where every year we're on a project basis, we may deal with one or two businesses. And this is because we believe in taking into account the realities, the peculiarities of that business, and then crafting solutions with that in mind, so that for whatever we're doing for community, we're not doing it at the expense of the growth of the company that's supporting us, the corporate entity that's driving the work that's done, but we're doing it with their growth in mind, also without compromising the integrity of the solution that we're driving. Let's just be clear. If you look back to the circular economy, if you look into it and what it is, I hope I don't confuse your viewers throwing in these big technical words, but you see that there's a place for businesses to drive sustainable development, drive sustainable growth, and the circular economy.
What role should companies play in transforming Ghana's sustainability landscape?
The role that they are best placed to play. And what I'll say is they should start by looking at their processes, start at looking at the way their company runs, the products and services that they offer, what the resources that they take from nature, from planet, from the human community, and then look for problem hotspots, right? And they can start with low-hanging fruits, nothing crazy. They can start from there based on each company. They can start by looking at low-hanging fruits in spaces that they actively touch, they actively take from, they actively exploit, and they can start solving those low-hanging problems from there. So let's just say you're a fast-moving consumer brand in Ghana, you're operating in Ghana, you know Ghana has a plastic waste problem. You can start by, let's say, committing some amount to a department in a university, and those amounts might go into supporting the students to experiment with polymer types, so that we're coming out with single-use packaging that can decompose, or that can still maintain its virgin quality after recycling cycles. That's a good place to start, and then they can scale up those solutions as they make sense.
Accra is a major hub with growing sustainability challenges. How does GoTo view and tackle sustainability in a rapid urbanizing city?
So how we tackle it, like I said, we're hitting 2 years, and for us, another magic wand has been getting closer to community. So getting closer to this urban community, making them our friend, so that we understand them and they also understand us. If you look at Accra and the Accra's urban community, it is one that has great taste for convenience. I mean, just like every other urban community. And if you look at Accra is also growing, becoming a cosmopolitan city. And so that means that there are a lot more dynamics that are coming in, and there's a lot of rapid change. There's change that's happening rapidly because of the influx of new culture and the assimilation of culture and such. And so our magic wand for now has been really understanding community and working with community. And so for our Eco Makala project, it wasn't really about the go-to team alone piloting this, but there was an invitation from young people. Because when it comes to the issue of plastic waste, we know that the young people, they've got the energy and they're tired of it. On social media, you would notice they're tired of it. They have the enthusiasm to drive the change. And so we work with that youth community to drive a change. If you look at the Eco Makala online campaign as well, we've targeted it at a demographic between 18 and 44, because we know that young people would fight against what they don't like. And I know that for this demographic, a dirty city is something that they abhor. So who better than to help us fight for a cleaner city? And so how we do it is on a project to project basis. We look within the urban setting, which group would be a better ally, and then we work with that group. We pick one hot spot problem, we work with a group to solve it.
Circular economy, green tech, and waste transformation. What's your take on Ghana's progress, and where do we need urgent intervention?
So my take on Ghana's progress so far is, I think that within the current realities, and when I say realities, I'm talking systemic, governance, policy wise. When you look within the current dispensation of Ghana, I think that the progress that we've made so far is satisfactory within the current realities that we live in, what's available, incentives, subsidies, and the likes. But I think that there's room for improvement. Um, One thing that we found is under GoTo, we had an umbrella, an arm called Tech Sustain. And when we started GoTo, we included Tech Sustain because we knew that on a cost benefit analysis basis, if what the climate scientists tell us is true, if what the projections tell us is true, the kind of on the ground advocacy, the traditional type that nonprofits like mine have done, might not be enough to help us curb catastrophe or to help us adopt to the changing times and changing climates and the likes. And if we're going to be able to actively adapt to the changes that climate change is bringing itself, or if we're going to be able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, we need to leapfrog, or we need an assistant. And that assistant for me is tech. And so it's in that breath that I see that we have made some progress, but there's more room for improvement. Accra has a plastic waste problem or a waste management problem. You can imagine that having smart bins that are built with the Accra um, um, the Accra leaning in mind, if you work waste companies and nonprofits to tell you that if you put a bin here for people, you might come and the bin is no longer there. Somebody has carried it on for their own sake. Well, then don't put a bin that can be moved. Be strategic about how you build the bin, have it backed by IoT sensors, and have a network that allows the picker to know that, okay, this bin at Makola gets full on this day, and so I should be going there this day to make my picking and stuff like that. You can imagine that would help us deal with plastic waste way better, or even waste in general, solid waste way better than the usual manual boots on the ground way. So yeah.
What are the biggest misconceptions about sustainability in Ghana, and how is GoTo shifting that narrative?
Before now, I would have said that the biggest misconception is that sustainability is expensive. 2 years into it, I'd say it's not a misconception when you are the one on the ground trying to drive the solutions with no backing safety net whatsoever. So I guess in that breath, that's what makes it expensive. Um, but what's the biggest misconception? I think that the biggest misconception, and this might be controversial, is that we are actually making strides in reaching the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 or in growing sustainably. Sometimes I sit down, I think one person asked me a question where they said, "Oh, Nabila, can you like name 3 successful circular economy, um, um, businesses or solutions or organizations?" And then I sat down and thought about the circular economy holistically, or even fundamentally for what it is, which is designing out waste and creating a system where waste circulates, or a closed loop system. And I thought to myself, and I said, we're nowhere close to that. I haven't been able to see any players or any ecosystem that resembles such as yet. They might exist. I haven't encountered them yet, not through my research, not through my work. And so I think for me, the biggest misconception is that we're making strides when we're really not. For the sake of our reality, even if you put the 2030 goals aside, I see sustainability and the circular economy as a trigger that, if Ghana takes seriously, can transform our country and can transform our development. Not even in the political sustainability sense of it, but in really simple things like having a cleaner city, like having a better food system where you're not losing 70% of your food to post-harvest loss, where food market prices are not out the roof simply because 70% of the food got lost on the farm. Why? Because farmers do not have storage facilities to house the produce till they find a market for it. Why? Because we are slacking on taking advantage of renewable energy storage systems.
There are growing interest in ESG, but many businesses still struggle with implementation. How is GoTo helping companies take action?
I think continuing to do what we do so that we're gathering the data for the companies to use, so that we are also identifying just which spaces need those ESG dollars or C's, so that we're identifying just which spaces and just which touch points the ESG energy and attention would convert. You'd also notice that for a lot of businesses, even those practicing or trying to hit their ESG goals and practicing ESG compliance, they're also the very same companies that are bashed as greenwashers. But when you interact with companies, for some of them, I don't think that it is a case of malicious intent per se at its core, but it's a way of being able to do good with, some small commitment, with smaller commitments than bigger, right? And so sometimes looking at the size of the company and the commitment that's being shown to ESG, somebody on the fringes will call to say, hey, that's not a real commitment, or hey, you're greenwashing. But what if you could have a better understanding of what's on the ground? You could have a better understanding of solution implementation in a way where you can maximize those ESG, those resources um, committed to ESG in a way where it's reaping real, tangible effect on the ground. So for us, it's at our 1.5 year milestone, um, just basically understanding and communicating which places you get more impact for doing good, or which kind of spending or which kind of resource commitment would reap more impact for doing good. Like I'll give an example. A lot of businesses might commit to cleanups, like, quarterly cleanups and such. But the thing about cleanups is there would always, you will always be cleaning. In fact, if you wanted to clean every day, you'll always be cleaning. That's not a good buck. That's not a good spending of your ESG money. But let's just say you were giving out tote bags. And not only were you giving out tote bags, but you were actively working with an organization that's re-engineering relationships to single-use plastics, then you see that over time, your ESG report shows more impact. You can record actual tangible impact and not just cleanups. Because after a time, if all you do is cleanups, people will judge you and say you're greenwashing. So yeah, that's about it.
What's next for GoTo? What should we be looking out for in next coming months?
Oh, yeah. Again, look out for the growth of Eco-Makala and look out for how Eco-Makala evolves, but also hop on board Eco-Makala. Volunteer with us to go into the markets, the Makala market at the end, last Saturday of every month, or simply go on the Eco-Makala website to donate to buy a bag for a shopper. Um, Other than that, you know what? Simply reuse your bags, okay? Um, if you use your bags, find a tote bag that works. Find a way to make it convenient for you to carry around and ditch the single-use rubber bags. They're tacky anyway. Um, Outside of Eco-Makala, we're working on secular tech, and secular tech is what I'm most excited about this year. We're trying to build technologies leveraging existing tech like AI, IoT, cloud computing, we're leveraging those to build technologies that aid in the circular economy transition. So that's something that you'll be hearing about, and that's something that we want community to join us on. And then at some point, we'll have the GoTo fair. And yeah, but just keep your eyes on our websites, on our Instagram pages. And yeah, we'll keep you updated on everything good and nice.